As always, this episode has been sponsored and brought to you by The Gaming Gibbon. Oh yes, check them out, gaminggibbon.co.uk. Yes, welcome back, my friends. Fresh meat for the Empire. Yes, welcome to the next instalment of the Skaven Army blog project. And in this episode, we are looking at the giant rats. Oh, yes. So, as always, as it has been said before, this is my reconquista, isn't it? It's my conquest of my old Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition army and regenerating it and bringing it screaming and crashing into the 21st century anew, ready for the old world and also ready to return to Warhammer Fantasy's 8th edition. And in this episode we're covering a unit that, when I played 8th edition, I put a massive horde unit of giant rats together, right? So for those of you who don't know, giant rats are a unit that you can take as a core choice. They are a troops choice. They don't really count towards your army minimums because they're not, it's just a bunch of giant rats. They're not that great. These are the wild lab experiments, right, that have gone astray, that have broken out of the lab and the handlers are chasing after, right? So I tried to make it back in the day in using the special character that's available, but we'll talk about him in a minute. But I never really finished the project. I didn't really have the right scope. So this is about taking that and actually having a unit in this Skaven army that isn't a character or a war machine, right? And giant rats seem like a good place to go because back in the day I used to get these models from all over the place. The absolute classic, of course, being the Rat Ogre and Packmaster box, which had 2 Rat Ogres, a couple of Packmasters, and a unit. I think it was 6 or 7 giant rat models that you could assemble of all different shapes and sizes. Again, these are the weird science experiment giant rats. So some of these are as big as dogs, some of these have got spikes, some of them have got strange technological components glued into them, and some of them have got extra arms and limbs. Some of them have got extra tails. But then this is also some of the older models I have. Like this is a giant rat from the original Skaven Swarm box that was released back in the day. And I tried back in the day to create my own unit fillers. As you can see, mixing 20mm bases here to make a 40mm frontage. And I tried mixing the different kinds of giant rat models that were out there, so the classic ones with the new ones, and it was hard. It was hard to ultimately get this idea to fruition. I also had the wild idea of turning what was at the time a classic Warhammer Fantasy direwolf model, which I think I got with my Goblin Wolf Riders back in the day, and turn that into like a super-sized giant rat. But I also have a mix of these metal models as well, which, as you can see from this giant rat centaur, is just, they're just divine. They add so much character to this regiment. So it's been about going, right, this is it. If I'm doing giant rats as an army, this is the unit to have, right? And we're going to do it as a horde. It's going to be a horde of 50 giant rats with their handlers. So 10 at the front, 5 ranks. Actual individually based giant rats, there are 26 here. So rules is written, if we're not allowed to use unit fillers, I can just break this up into multiple units of 5 with handlers, or one big unit of 26, and then use the actual unit fillers as rat swarms. But going back to Warhammer Fantasy 8th for a minute, because this is where the old world differs. Your unit sizes weren't capped for a start, and there were lots of extra little special abilities and things. Like these guys fought in extra ranks like spearmen did. So you'd have front rank, horde, and supporting rank, which in this case was the giant rats special ability. But the whole thing here is it's going, right, well, if we're doing this, how many handlers, how many packmasters am I going to need? And it is literally here, black and white, 1 packmaster per 5. The smallest unit you could make is 1 packmaster and 5 giant rats. I guess to try and hunt down a rogue enemy wizard, or try and distract an artillery piece, or just to block a charge maybe. But I never went for small units back in the day, and I don't go for small units now. one of the powers, one of the greatest named characters the Skaven had that only existed in Warhammer Fantasy 7th and 8th, right, was Packmaster Squeal Gnawtooth, right, this guy. Classic metal model, enormous whip, which you can guarantee if that was Finecast resin would have snapped by now. And he is, and I paint him, here he is, and along with all the other Packmaster models, which ultimately are a combination of the original plastics with whips, as well as this Marauder miniature holding an orc grabbing claw for a man-thing catcher weapon. So ultimately this video, like all my previous ones, this isn't a straight tutorial, this is a army blog, so that was the putting everything on bases, getting everything ready, and here we are mid-painting, right, and we're getting towards the end of the painting, and I want to talk about some rat models that I can guarantee for 99% of the people out there flew straight under the radar, and that is the little rat models, because we're used to the big ones, right, we're used to the ones that are the size of cats and dogs and so on, the giant rats. These tiny rat models, these came with the Hell Pit Abomination kit, right? You got a whole bunch, I think you got like 7 or 8 of them in total. These make wonderful little additions once you finish painting your unit, because look how tiny they are. Look how tiny they are. Like, most people don't even recognize them. They think they've come from some modern kit, right? But honestly, it's the final touches that you put on a project that brings it all together. And in the case of this unit, this regiment of 60, so it's a horde unit of 60, right? You've got 50 giant rats, including the unit fillers, which count as four rats apiece, and then 10 handlers, 10 packmasters with a master molder and packmaster Squeal Gnawtooth. It is a monster to put on the table. It is bigger than my warp lightning cannon that you saw in my previous video, and it is a finished regiment. This was, so as a project, this was a way for me to break back into the habit of painting lots and lots of models and doing batch painting, because that's something that we forget over time how to do. Let's be brutally honest, when you've not needed to do it for so long, that is something that we forget how to do. And it has been so good to get back into that habit of going, okay, what needs doing on each individual model, but in groups of 10, in groups of 20. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that there's a mix of some additional giant rats here that I've not talked about, including the swarm of corpse rats from the Cursed City board game, the Cursed City game, which I know they're meant to be like zombie rats or whatever. You paint them up and you put them in the unit. Honestly, no one's batting an eye, especially if you surround them with some of the other giant rat models that do have things like bits of bone showing or eyes missing, so they've got the empty sockets. Because just look at the scale of this. And that's what this video is about. This is my unit of giant rats. That is this unit done. I will only now, from this point, really paint giant rat models to either replace individual models here that I'm not particularly happy with and need updating, because I've got a lot of the ones with the bionic eye, or I've got a lot of the ones that are sort of looking up with a little Skaven triangle medallion under the neck, right? I could do with changing some of those out. But in terms of doing another unit like this, nah, this is it. And there's a lot of Easter eggs here. There's a Pied Piper looking pack handler. There's conversion work on all of the pack masters. I've even got one where I've used classic Skaven proportioned head and hands, weapon hands on him, just because ultimately these guys aren't uniform. They come in different shapes and sizes, and some of them do have bigger features than their friends. No, I'll be honest with you, it feels good. It does feel, you do get an immense satisfaction completing a unit of this scale. That is something that Warhammer, the Old World, and Warhammer 8th edition and previous editions really hammered home. It is not just, here's my 1 or 2 really nicely painted character centerpiece models. It's, no, here's what it looks like when you've got an army of centerpiece models, right? Where each individual one you can take out. It doesn't matter that these are the guys that die in droves. every single model can be a piece of artwork, and I love it. I absolutely love it. So, as always, thank you for watching, my friends, today's episode. If you've enjoyed this video, by all means, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff, and check out the Patreon page. And as always, I will see you in the next episode. Thank you, and goodbye. gaminggibbon.co.uk. Link in the description box down below. A fantastic brand new company providing paint, tools, scenic basing and crafts for all of your hobby needs right here in the UK. Check out the website and get a 10% off discount code when you sign up to the website. Oh yes, they have all the big name brands from the Army Painter, MIG Paints, Gamer Grass, Geek Gaming Scenics, Green Stuff World, and of course Tamiya. So head on over, tell them that James Hall of JH Miniatures sent you. Oh yes.